So this is a guide to setting up a trading company in Singapore, or more specifically setting up an import and export company in Singapore. There is a high volume of companies or high number of companies every year are established in Singapore with an intention to engage in trading activities or import or export activities. Moreover, many foreigners who set company in Singapore, they have an intention to use it for trading purpose, and generally the models are where they import it from China and take these products to their respective home countries. So I decided to make a specific guide on this topic, and this is the one we are discussing now. So the agenda for this presentation is as follows. So we are going to understand what models we are referring, then the customs registration procedure and purpose, duties and GST applicable on import, bonded or free zone warehouse schemes, control goods which needs permit, certificate of origin issues, and how to find a service provider and trade documentation. So let's first understand the models referred in this presentation. So when we talk of trading companies, there are basically three types of models those are involved. In first case, goods are imported into Singapore. That means the goods actually enter the Singapore boundaries and they are exported to some other country. So this is called as import for re-export, and generally the purpose can be that people are bringing in products to repackage it, maybe with their label and packaging, so that the original manufacturer cannot be identified. Or other reason can be that they are going to modify the product to some extent before re-exporting it. The second model is where goods are imported in Singapore for local consumption. So goods are imported but they don't leave and go out of Singapore again, or local goods are exported out of Singapore. So these first two models are very similar to each other except that there is no re-export. And the third model, which is slightly different, is where there is a high seas sale. That means the goods are sold by one company to other while on high seas. So goods do not enter in this case in Singapore. They don't cross the boundary of Singapore. They are sent by the shipping company from shipping country to the destination. For example, if the goods are going to Australia, then they will be shipped from China to Australia directly, and Singapore entity will be only a middleman and will do the billing in this case. So these are the three models, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain for the first model here because that is the most exhaustive one, and then I will tell you where the things change for the third model. First and second model is more or less similar. So the first question is why people incorporate trading company in Singapore, especially if the products are headed to some other country. Why Singapore company should be a middleman in this transaction? So this is a map of Asia, and as you can see, majority of the models in this case involve where the goods are imported from some manufacturing country like China. Most of the cases it is China, and the goods arrive in Singapore, which is at this location shown here, and then they are subsequently sent to other countries like Australia, Indonesia, India, or anywhere else in the world. So in these circumstances, the company incorporated in Singapore is attractive because of two reasons. Because the tax rates are low. So Singapore has got a tax rate of 17% on corporate profit, and with first few years of exemptions, the actual tax rate can come down to as low as 5-6%. That depends upon how much total profit the company has. So you can save a significant amount of money on the tax cost, and you can save a lot of tax expenses. The second benefit that is experienced by companies is that remittance procedures are easy. Singapore does not have any foreign exchange restrictions, meaning you can transact in any foreign currency at your will without obtaining any approval. In many Asian countries, obtaining approvals for payment remittances can be a headache and can be a long procedure of few days. So these are the primarily two reasons why people incorporate their trading company in Singapore. So now having understood this, let's go step by step about establishing and maintaining your trading entity. So the initial steps are very straightforward. First, you will have to incorporate a company in Singapore, and obviously, along with it, open a bank account also, because the bank account will be necessary for making and receiving the payments. Once the company is incorporated, you will have to activate it for customs transaction, that is called as customs registration. It is a one time process, and it needs to be done after the company is incorporated. When you register for customs, Singapore Customs will send you a letter which looks like this. So the details of your company will be mentioned in this, and they will say that your company has been approved and registered for customs purpose. And now you can submit transactions for approval and start importing or exporting goods using TradeNet. So TradeNet is the system, centralized systems which is used in Singapore for export and import of goods and interacting with customs authorities. So this is the initial step, and once this step is done, your company is ready for doing import export transactions. So once you start this transaction, the next question comes to the mind is of duties and GST. So there are two indirect taxes which needs to be considered here. First is import duty. Now Singapore is a free trade port, and as such there are no import duties on majority of the products. However, there are certain classes of products. If you import those products into Singapore, then import duty will be applicable. And those products are intoxicating liquors, tobacco products, motor vehicles, and petroleum products and biodiesel blends. So, if the product that you are bringing into Singapore falls in any of these categories, then import duty, as specified in the import duty schedule, will need to be paid to the customs authorities. All other goods, and obviously these goods also, are subject to 7% GST on import. So if the product that you are importing is not dutiable, then you need to pay only 7% GST. So I'll show you example here. Let's say the value of import is $10,000 and it's not a dutiable product. It means it is not falling in these four categories. So there is no import duty. So total with duty is still 10,000 and 7% GST will apply. So you will have to pay in this case 700 GST to Singapore customs authorities. If the product has import duty, then that import duty will need to be filled in the row of import duty, and import duty plus GST both will be applicable. The payment of duties is normally done via interbank gyro. So you will have to authorize Singapore customs to deduct the amount of duty from your bank account, and when the TradeNet submission happens, the amount will be automatically deducted from your bank account. Moving on to the next slide, the next topic is about free trade zone and bonded warehouse scheme. So one of the question is that if you are importing products into Singapore, that is the goods are entering into Singapore but for re-export purpose only. For example, you want to bring the products in Singapore, you want to repackage it, and then you want to send it to some other country so that the recipient will not know from where the product has really originated. Then in that circumstances, you can take benefit of free trade zone or bonded warehouse scheme. Here you don't need to pay any GST on the import. So you have seen in our example, the GST was at 7%. However, if you are bringing the goods in free trade zone, then you don't have to pay this GST. But the other condition is that you cannot then sell these goods in Singapore. So they are kind of restricted. I think concept of free trade zone almost everybody knows, and this is the same scheme which is applicable here. So there are actually 7 or 8 or 9 areas in Singapore which are designated as free trade zone. And if the logistics service provider has a warehouse in these areas, then in that circumstances you can avail the benefit of this bonded warehouse or free trade zone scheme. The next topic is about the controlled goods. Now some of the goods in Singapore are controlled, and more paperwork and approval is required for these controlled goods. And what are these controlled goods? You can see the list over here. This is not a complete list, but I have shown the major categories. So if there are animal, bird products, endangered species, meat and meat products, fish and seafood, fruit and vegetable, arms and explosives, guns, pistols and revolvers, toy guns, I mean, any weapons, spears and swords, films, video games, publications, pharmaceutical medicines, poisons, telecommunication equipment, or the goods of dual use, that is, which can be used for military purpose as well as for civil purpose, or for the weapons of mass destruction, then all those goods are considered to be control goods. And when control goods are being imported, additional approvals will be necessary. For example, if you are bringing in meat and meat products, then in that circumstances, agri and food authority will need to be get involved, and they will give the approval for the import of this product. Same way, if you are importing telecommunication equipments, some kind of radio antennas or something like that, then in that case, IMDA will need to give approval for bringing this product in Singapore. If you are bringing in medicines or poisons or anything like that, then obviously HSA, Health Science Authority, will have to give their approval. The one good thing is that if you miss out on any of this, then your logistics service provider will normally have knowledge of these products and he can guide you about whether additional approvals are required or not. But keep it in mind, if you are not prepared, then it can delay your clearance of your shipment, and that can add to some days to your timeline. The next topic is about certificate of origin. Now, if the goods that you are exporting are locally manufactured, then certificate of origin can be easily obtained. However, if you are bringing in goods from somewhere else, from overseas, and you want to change the country of origin, then you need to keep it in mind a global rule that at least 55% of the value of the end product must be created in the country which claims to be the country of origin. So what happens is, people sometimes call us and they say that I want to import something from China. I just want to repackage it and then I want to obtain a certificate of origin as this product originated in Singapore. And then I want to ship it to some other country. Unfortunately, this idea is not viable because of this 55% value addition rule. So if you are making plans based on this idea, then you need to check it carefully with the relevant authorities. Certificate of origin is generally important because importing country can have duties and tariff based on the origin country. And if it is Singapore, and if Singapore has a free trade agreement with any of that country, then you can get reduced rate of duty applied to your imported shipment. So now we again come back to the first models that we referred in this presentation, these three models. And I think now you got the idea about what exactly needs to be done in setup, duties and certificate of origin. Now, few things to note: if you are in the high sell mode, that means the goods are not entering into Singapore, then customs registration is not required because goods are not entering here. You are not going to process any shipment for entry or exit. The second thing is that there are no import duties or there is no GST because goods are not entering in Singapore. So both these things are irrelevant. However, one key thing that you should keep it in mind is permission for control goods may still be needed on a case-to-case basis. For example, if it is a food item, then in that circumstances that permission is not required because goods are not meant for consumption in Singapore. But obviously the country then that is importing this product will have to check. But if the goods are something like maybe I will say cannabis or drug products, then in that circumstances, even if goods are not entering into Singapore, they are not allowed to be traded with a Singapore entity associated. So keep this point in mind that there are some products which are generally barred for trading by any Singapore entity, whether locally or whether internationally. Moving on to the next slide then, one more question comes into picture is buying locally and exporting goods abroad. So in these circumstances, what happens when you procure these goods locally? The local seller is going to charge you 7% GST. But when you export, you are not charging any GST to export customers. So what to do in case of this 7% GST? Because if the 7% GST becomes your cost, then it is quite a significant amount. You might be working on thin margins and the GST might erode all the profit. So there are two options in this case. First is which is shown on the left hand side. You can declare the shipping address to be of overseas location and ask the supplier not to charge GST. That means the supplier has to directly ship it outside Singapore, but he will bill that cost to you, which is a local entity. And in that circumstances, on the basis that the shipping has been done out of Singapore, he will not charge any GST. This many companies will do. This is a legal procedure. I mean, this is legally approved procedure, and there's nothing wrong in that. But sometimes what happens, some companies are very about this, that they don't want to bill local company with zero GST invoice. So in that circumstances, you may pay the GST, the second option, which is shown on the right hand side. You can pay the GST on input side and then claim back the GST paid on input side by filing a GST return. But this will require GST registration, a voluntary GST registration to be done by you. Obviously, this second option is slightly cumbersome and complicated. So the first option is preferred. So the next question then is, who is going to do all this work? As you can see, in this case, there are a lot of activities. For example, you have to take the delivery of goods, process TradeNet transactions for customs, store shipments, switch bill of lading occasionally, repackage the goods, maybe carry out the export and submit the shipment for export. So there are a lot of logistics activities, those needs to be carried out. And what happens in for many foreign promoted companies in Singapore, there is nobody here in Singapore who can physically do all these activities. So the promoter is staying in some foreign country like maybe Australia, India, Malaysia, or Indonesia, and they have only a company, and that occasionally is being used only for importing and exporting. So in that circumstances, what you can do, you can get a logistic service provider. And where should you get this logistic service provider? That place I will show you. So I am on Google search engine and search for Singapore Logistics Association. So Singapore Logistics Association, and go to their website. So this is the association of all logistics providers in Singapore. And then what you can do, you can go to members directory and it will give you all the logistics service providers in this list. And I don't know whether you can really search it here. But for example, let's say that we check for this 3R Logistics. So the activities that they provide: warehousing and storage, sea freight forwarding, document management, exhibition, air freight, and so on. So one of the questions that came to my mind while preparing this presentation is about the temperature controlled warehouses, because I recall that yesterday somebody was asking me this question. So some of the Singapore logistics providers, they also provide the temperature controlled warehouse, which is required for storing of medicines and vaccines, and in some other cases alcohol also. I mean, if you are importing beer and all that, then also you require temperature controlled warehouse. So moving on to the next slide, then it is about trade documentation and banking. I will not go through this in very much detail because I'm planning to create another presentation of this. But once you start making transactions, you will have financial transactions also inevitably. For example, there can be accounts receivable collection, release of documents after the receipt of LC documents, letter of credit transactions. So all these transactions can be managed from trade desk of any Singapore based bank. So Singapore banks typically provide a complete trade desk features at a fee, obviously. So they will charge you something for this. So I'll show you exactly where to learn more about it. I'll again go back to website for this. So I'm on Google and I'm going to check OCBC trade desk. So I'm checking for OCBC bank, and you can check it over here. So these are the typically facilities that OCBC bank provides. So they provide trade services for import finance, export finance, middleman, supply chain finance, and related activities. For example, if I click on this, Then there is a process which explains you about letter of credit, document collection, banker's guarantee, and so on. So you can learn more about it over here. Now, one point I want to highlight that if you are a foreigner and if you need any bank financing, then you need to check carefully with the respective bank. Generally, banks will not provide financing to any company where a Singaporean or local PR shareholding is less than 30%. So, this part you have to check with the respective banks. In summary, trading companies is a large segment operating in Singapore. There are many options for them to manage their operations, and I hope with this video guide, all those aspects are clear to you.
Thank you for watching this video. This video was brought to you by Epica Consulting Singapore. Subscribe to our channel today to get notified when new videos are posted.